Brodes Media.
All right, well, it looks like Nick Sirianni's going to come back. The last we saw as of this recording is Jeffrey Lurie is waiting to meet with Sirianni on Friday. So you got your classic case of the Friday news dump. They know what the reaction's going to be. They know a lot of people will be pissed off. So let's throw it out there to the public when it's right before the weekend. So then when Monday rolls around and sports talk radio is back in its purest form and there's a lot more eyeballs set on some of the columns written and the articles dropped, they got this whole thing planned, and it's very unfortunate because, let's be honest, what is going to sway Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman? It's very simple. It's his coaching staff, right? It's the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. Those two names are what will pop most in their heads. The problem is, doesn't that tell you Nick Sirianni isn't doing a damn thing? Doesn't that tell you that what Sirianni brings to the table isn't good enough and other coaches being in the building is what moves the needle? Therefore, what does Nick Sirianni do? If it's 50-50 and it's a coin flip, you have your answer. If it's coming down to other names that mean more to you, you have your answer. Now, if they are able to get, I don't know, a defensive mind that's been around the block for a long time, who could bring stability and has had a track record of being a head coach in this league, and I'm just having a barroom conversation with you right now. This is hypothetical. Let's say Ron Rivera could run your defense, a respected mind in this league who's been around quite some time. And let's say Washington wants to really reshape their entire program down there. So, Eric Bieniemy, see you later. And it's like, hey, you could bring in Eric Bieniemy, Ron Rivera, OCDC under Sirianni. Once again, pretend we're having Miller Lights at the bar and we're just throwing shit at the wall, having some fun after a cold Miller or few or 7 or 10. It's a fine Pilsner. It says it right there on the bottle. It wouldn't lie to me. Love a nice cold Miller. Would that be awesome? Would that tickle your fancy? Or is it still not good enough because Sirianni is still here? I would not bring him back. I'm starting to get concerned that Jeffrey Lurie is worried about the optics and how much of a bad look it is if you are moving away from somebody who made the playoffs 3 straight years and in the inner circle of the NFL family. Really? That's what you're doing? The disrespect. What's next? Where does this continue to go from here if you're getting rid of these guys? Is it now that you have one bad year and it is poof, you're gone? But here's my counter argument. There's no way with where the current status is of the head coaching hires that Nick Sirianni is high on the list when competing with what else is available. I wonder if there's another no-name QB coach who's looking to make that OC jump, or someone like Ben Johnson who's got a lot of pop to his name. If I'm a team, I'm hiring Ben Johnson over Nick Sirianni 10,000 times over again. I want Ben Johnson in my house instead of Sirianni. I don't think the guy is very good, and I don't care what Brandon Graham says. Or, I'm sorry, that was Fletcher Cox. I don't care what Fletcher Cox says. I don't care if Jason Kelsey's going to bat for the coach. You told me everything you needed to tell me over the last 7 weeks. You didn't have the coaches back because you didn't believe in what the coaching was preaching. I like Fletcher Cox a lot. We all do. But he's going to be a good player. He's going to be a good professional. He's going to be someone who has a ton of respect for the guy, Nick Sirianni, so we won't call for his job because there's a brotherhood in that league, and Fletcher's taking the high road. Same with Jason Kelsey. Of course, they're going to say they have to be the ones lacing up the cleats and putting on the pads to look themselves in the mirror, right? It's cliche. It's player speak. Fletch went after Jeff McClain a little bit bit and made it more hostile than it needed to be. Fletch made it seem it was outrageous to ask for Nick Sirianni's head. Hold on a second. Have you been paying attention? What are you pulling a Jalen Hurts? What? In what world? What do you mean in what world? The guy has fallen apart and collapsed and had zero answers for a traditional blitz. A blitz! He doesn't know how to stop a blitz. He's an NFL coach and you can just blitz and win. You know when you blitz? Thanksgiving in your backyard playing football with your 65-year-old uncle who's shit-faced and stoned as hell from a blunt he rolled in his car and he baked it out listening to Lil Wayne. That's what your 65-year-old uncle does. You know what you do? You blitz after 5 Mississippi and you get after them. Yet in the NFL, I guess this thing works easy as hell. It's unacceptable. It can't happen. What you're doing is setting him up for failure because he's walking on thin ice the second next season begins. What's the first conversation we're going to have as a city when they start their voluntary practices and their OTAs and all that stuff? Is Nick Sirianni going to fall apart again? No matter what. No matter what. And now everyone who will be returning, while there's a lot of defensive names I never want to see again, there's still going to be a lot of returners. Your offensive line outside of Kelsey, maybe. He threw out that tweet on the New Heights podcast where he started to cry and get emotional and it looked like he still had fire in his stomach. What did Jonathan Gannon say? You got that fire in your gut? Well, he started to tear up and get quiet. Travis Kelce's like, yeah, man, hey, get it out, get it out. Maybe he still wants to be in that room again because he didn't like the way things ended. But my point is, everyone really experienced, the returners that are going to be back next season, what the failure was like under Nick Sirianni. Therefore, the tiniest little decision that can go wrong, the worst little mistake or the lack of detail, or if a couple flags happen in a game, they can't stop the bleeding. It's already been on the record that he doesn't know how. Therefore, if you are starting a season off 1-3, where does it go from there? Right? You got to start out hot as hell, and at this rate, it doesn't even matter if you do, because what if they're 10-1 next season, and then they lose 2 straight, and now they're 10-3? Or even if they lose 1, and then they're 10-2? It's so fragile. You're constantly looking around with your eyes swinging. And you're putting the team and the organization in that spot prior to the season even beginning, prior to the draft. I don't think that is a good recipe for success. And I just don't know when you question this much. What are you getting out of it? Isn't that everything you need to know? You're asking the man to put together a PowerPoint presentation to beg for his job. Hey, prove to me you're good at this after you had one of the biggest historic collapses in the league. If you have to ask that man to do it, I think you're searching for reasons to keep him instead of listening to your gut, which is realistically leaning, it ain't good enough. He's not doing enough. He's not smart enough. From a football strategy level, I'm actually now starting to get to the point where I think Brian Johnson might be great. I think Brian Johnson might be good, and he's just being asked to call a bunch of plays that are hot garbage. Hot garbage. So, hey, pick between these 3 plays that don't work. And then when it doesn't work, and Brian Johnson sucks, or all of his options suck because Nick Sirianni sucks when it comes to not calling plays, putting together a damn game plan and strategizing. His concepts don't make sense. So Brian Johnson's out there getting interview after interview after interview. And it doesn't matter how we feel about Brian Johnson, because Jonathan Gannon 1 season ago is the perfect example. This guy's a clown. His defense doesn't work. He's getting crushed. There's so much open space. His corners play too far back. And then Arizona, and obviously the entire league for years, was making the claim that this guy had head coach written all over him. Doesn't matter how we feel feel. And the same applies to Brian Johnson. Maybe around the league circles, it goes, yeah, you know what? Sirianni's so tragic that let's talk about it. I'm watching from afar, from a distance, Sirianni internally blow up and Aikman destroy his ass and Jay Gruden destroy his ass and Dan Orlovsky destroying that ass. They were all destroying his ass because his plays don't add up. There's actually plenty examples of coaching malpractice